Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to your MOCA weekly town hall, which we can now confirm no longer auto-populates in our timeline. Yeah, now we know. My name is Max. Below me is Renee. To my right is Coburn. We're happy to see you. We're happy to see each other. I'm happy to see you both. How are we?
I'm good.
One thumb up.
All right, well, that's pretty good, honestly.
My cognition is starting to feel more clear.
Cognition in what regard? About this? Just about everything? Like
I can, my words are returning, and I can draw linear conclusions.
Have you drawn any linear conclusions recently you'd like to share?
That my cognition feels clearer.
That seems like a looping cycle.
Well, we'll start there. We'll see what else we can come up with.
Let's actually start here. In a different entryway. But Colburn, you were kind of away from the space for a couple months, and dipping your toe back into it, I think, with a little bit more. You're just devoting any time at all, like, to it, right? After I think you were pretty gone for what was honestly like a pretty depressing, dark, and downward spiraling period. Are there things that you notice now, or things that seem clear to you now that hadn't been before, or that start to fill in, like, I don't know, gaps that may not have existed?
Well, I guess for the uninitiated, I have been absent because I recently became a father, which has led me to be largely offline, and also perhaps fundamentally re-examining the ways I spend my time and the things I care about. It has been a period of reflection on the ways I spend my time and the things I care about, which the majority of my life for the past 5, almost 6 years, that's incredible to even think about, has been focused pretty much solely on this idea of crypto art and what it means, and the tremendous rise and fall of this space. I'm very proud conceptually or of the concepts that we continue to put forward and the things that we advocated for and the work that we've all done.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've done exceptional work. I think we've been a lot more right than we were wrong. And I think, I think 2021, there was a cancer that, by the end took hold and metastasized and kind of ate the whole thing from the inside out.
It's clear in hindsight that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But no one was ever really able to wrangle these things under control.
Yeah. And it never particularly matters the intentions of the best and the kindest and the most noble. That hardly seems to matter in this world.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it seems even in that short time period that the broader narratives at large have continued to focus on the excessive, the extreme, and the grandiose, as opposed to the nuance, or kind of the care and the refinement, and the message.
That's also, however, not to cut you off in the middle of your idea, but that's society wide, right? Like
totally.
Yeah, even a couple days ago, when Seed Dance, the new video AI engine from the Chinese ByteDance, came out, and people were making videos with it, and they were saying this is going to fundamentally change Hollywood. There were these videos of, it was basically like very very well made looking CGI experiments, buildings falling, airplanes falling out of the sky, explosions, etc. And the kind of conversation that came out of that was like, well, how is anyone going to make a movie? Why would anyone go see a movie when they can have this? And it's such a it's an attitude that is so accustomed to bombacity being equated with value that it can't appreciate nuance. Let me just bring Renee in here real quick. But like when you are engaged in a world in which value is tied to just like explosions and event cinema and being battered over the head with CGI and impressive visuals, etc., when the highest grossing movies are Marvel and their Jurassic Park and their Avatar, and the kind of plots don't really matter and the characters don't really matter and the nuance of the thing doesn't really matter, and the reason why narrative art has been successful for as long as it had doesn't matter, because really what you're there for is the visual experience, then yeah, it does presuppose that this new technology that can mimic that is going to fundamentally change the industry. Same thing with I saw a video of these like hyper realistic AI generated video game graphics, but again, it presupposes that value doesn't come from an original idea or nuance or connection or like
So
the point is only that we're so deep in that world that I don't know if I can't see out of it either oftentimes.
Yeah, it's now it's a bit of a almost like a theater of the absurd, where one video I saw a AI video of somebody wrestling a baby, like WWF wrestling a baby, and that's like, it's really funny to see that. And then what do? I go and I prompt to go make more baby wrestling videos, and it's still really, really funny. But then somebody's doing like Ronaldo as an F1 car, and it's total nonsense. It's it's just there is kind of it does tickle something, but nothing that I would call nothing that I would call art. It's almost the same problem I have with people.
I wonder if it's sustainable, just in the sense that like at a certain point there is no more absurd you can get without becoming completely psychedelic and losing like the thread. Right?
So let's rewind. This is something that I was thinking about last night, is that you go to the origins of crypto art, you start to see the early symbols. Call the early symbols Bitcoin logo, Ethereum logo, Pepe.
Astronaut? Or does that come later?
So then I think if that's like round one, that's pretty like literal. There's obviously much more symbology baked into Pepe. So we'll sidebar that.
All were in-group dog whistles, essentially, right? All were like, if you recognize this, you're in.
So then next round of big symbology, I think, would be classified as palm trees, astronauts, and skulls. Okay. Right? Which actually, to me, is pretty interesting. If the palm tree kind of symbolizes like a paradise we're going to, and the astronaut as kind of the adventurer that's going there, and the skull as classically reckoning with mortality, even if it is overused and abundant, there's still the idea of like a greener place that we're going to.
I'll stop you briefly and add into that. When you're just, I like that combination of the three symbols on each side of this, but the first three symbols are again, like they are signifiers of knowledge. But the second three, like the very existence of the palm tree, the astronaut, the skull, are symbols tied with depth, right? They're like those I think like represent like just looking, obviously knowing what it is doesn't necessarily give you any kind of social credo, but tying that to an Eric P. Rhodes and tying the astronaut to all the 3D artists and like, I don't know, that seems like the clubhouse, so to speak, that you are into, right? There are things to do here. There's things to see. There's subtlety, nuance, there's connections between moving parts.
Yeah. The third thing, of course, is monkeys and animals. And that's what came next. And that to me is like so insane how we were going somewhere, but then just like totally the narrative of value totally got co-opted into something that is so primal, so individualistic, something that is so generally fear like based that from there it's almost like no wonder it all fell apart.
Well, and then after that,
because the second it becomes PFP, it's really just like PvP. It's really just everybody for themselves and an in-group. And, you know, whereas we were like one collective going somewhere, that collective got dispersed, scattered to the wind, and then everybody's on their own again, trying to find that lost idea of community.
I mean, if we're going to continue this trend outwards, what happens after monkeys? It's mostly abstractions. It's mostly like complete destruction of clear meaning.
Well, that was the art blocks problem, right? And those were kind of emergent art. I feel like art blocks, of course, was emergent alongside Bored Ape Yacht Club.
Sure, around the same time, right? What was Squiggles came out in November of 21, which would have been just like the very kind of tip of the spear, or very top of the iceberg, rather, before things kind of started to come back down.
So that to me is all just, it's pretty interesting. And then of course, you know, you have the memetics, and once you've crossed into those places by trying to assign deeper meaning to memetics or something like Beeple, which I think has significance more as a diary than anything else, it's hard to then begin to ascribe and assign value to somebody that is working in deeper concepts, right? It's hard to look at Operator, or it's hard to look at Def Beef and be like, this is the counterbalance to Beeple, when it's like this.
Yeah.
Just thoughts. Do I think something like really important happened here? And do I think this unlocked an incredible amount of creativity and there's incredible value? Absolutely.
I was at this art museum, not really an art museum, like a, I don't even know what you call it. It was more like a projectionist museum. It was like one of those like kind of like funhouse art museum-y thingies. It was in New York, or in Manhattan rather, with my family. And it was like all these rooms with mirrors and projections and light sculptures and things like that. It was very like fun and interactive, not super, you know, deep or anything. And then at the end, there's this big room covered in like projector light, and it kind of like shows these three-dimensional movies on all the screens. And one of them, we walked in, was about the Musée de d'Orsay in France, and excuse my terrible French. But the screens would kind of shift around, and it was going through these different epochs of like French art. And at one point, everything goes black, and then there's these like very brushstroke heavy impressionistic flowers on the wall. And my dad says, "Oh, this is Monet." And I'm like, "Well, we're moving forward in time. This is like the 1890s, so like I feel like Monet was earlier than that. We're probably in post-impressionists." And then, of course, it was Monet, because I don't actually know anything. And you realize that Monet had a 40 to 50-year art career. He was painting in the 1860s, and then by the 90s is when he moved to Giverny and was painting the water lilies and the bridges, and a 35 to 40-year time horizon for just like his works that are well known. And that's just like one artist, and that's how long Impressionism lasted before like the Goggins and the Van Goghs kind of took over, even though that mostly happened in hindsight, but that's neither here nor there. Point being, this whole thing, the whole of crypto art, even if you start its genesis in 2017, right, with the Creeps and Weirdos and the CryptoPunks, even if you go back to 2016 when Sarah Miohouse was doing Bitcoin, even if you go back to, Kevin McCoy minting an NFT, what was that, 2014? Like, there has been no time for this thing to develop, really, and for value to assign itself. Art movements do not generally spring up and die in 10 years, right? Like, they take longer to mature. They take longer to like figure out who their paragons are. It's usually messier in the middle, and it's usually like in hindsight that like a Dali gets crowned the king of surrealism, or that a Warhol gets crowned the king of pop art, right? So it's just interesting how quickly this whole thing has developed, right? If you really think about the start of like the movement itself, the classification of the movement, probably like 2019, when people were coming here. I mean, it was 2018 when Art Gnome used the term crypto art for the first time, but like probably the movement as a whole was 2019 when people kind of started to come here, when Super Rare kind of rose, and Pinder Van Arman was selling X copy work for $1,000, and there was just any kind of idea of like consistency here. It's still like 7 years that this whole thing would have formed, peaked, fell, and value would have been assigned to certain people in certain places. And that's just very in the grander context, or as far as I know it.
Yeah, but the context is so different. The context is so different. Because you have instant distribution. The problem is that so many of the art institutions that we have now are so violently corrupt. Well, maybe those are not the right words, but it all seems to very much be pay for play.
But we're still in it, right? Like, we're still creatures who are not used to this kind of time horizon. We are genetically not predisposed to this kind of speed, experiencing this kind of speed on a socio-cultural level. And of course, it's only getting faster. The way that these like memes and apps, like the fact that like something like Maltbook, which I know people are still using, but it kind of like appeared out of nowhere, and every single person I know was talking about it, and then it was just gone, right? Within 24 hours. This is the way like Vine, the short form videos were, 10, 15 years ago. And there might be like a famous Vine or like a viral Vine, and it would last 2 or 3 days, and then it would go away. And now TikTok has turned that into, a matter of minutes, right? Something gains virality, it spreads across the algorithm within moments, everyone sees it, and then it goes away by the end of the day. No one, like, never to be heard from again, and the creator of it probably never to be heard from again, oftentimes. So like, but we're still the same like creatures unused to this kind of speed, experiencing this kind of speed. I don't know. Am I making a cogent point, or does it sound like I have made a cogent point?
Yeah, but I would almost disagree. I would say that this augmentation with technology is a almost separate evolutionary branch. We are not the same just by the means of exposure to anybody that was participating in what would be called contemporary art history even 100 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago.
Yeah, and this idea of, there is some amorphous idea of what constitutes art and what constitutes culture. And I mean, just aside from everything being turned on its head and massive distrust in any sort of institution, we're currently about to step off of the precipice to remake everything again.
Or watch as it is remade on our behalf.
I mean, it will, yeah. I mean, is that kind of like referencing the hundreds of people that are leading AI?
It's more like,
we're taking all of that history and we're condensing it into thinking machines, right? So all of that context that we as humans have spent, we've spent our lifetime building context, right? But now all of that context is going to be presupposed and put into a machine. And that is a much greater contextual base to make presumptions and move forward on. I think that's kind of what, and that's when what are the decisions that are going to be made when there is an idea of full context.
But context changes so quickly, right? Like, so I'm going to use an example, and I'm going to try and fit this in. But something I often hear spoken about with like basketball teams, right, in the NBA, is that when they're experiencing, when they're underperforming in a season and they blame the coaching, which is what often happens, the first thing that will happen is they will bring in a new coach. The organization will bring in a new coach that's the antithetical opposite, or that is the antithesis to the last coach. So if the last coach was a hard ass, real leader of men, like real theory person, they might bring in someone who's like a lot softer, very player oriented, kind of like locker room enthusiast, so to speak, and then vice versa. If the last person who came in and didn't have success was very like buddy with the players, they might bring in like a kind of disciplinarian type, older, kind of harder. The context changes depending on what the previous context was, right? And I wonder in this case, because things move so fast and people are often like called automatically to be dissatisfied with their current context and then seek a change in the complete opposite direction, if the systems will be able to interpret that quick enough to maintain relevance. If I am, I think about these models, and maybe Renee, you can help me if I get the details of this wrong. Mm-hmm. But these models are trained on, years and years and years and years and years of everything, right? There's always going to be, in theory, more content that validates what they're currently thinking than new content that challenges it. So if, let's use art as an example, right? There is a way, if you just ask a ChatGPT, right, when it was DALL-E a couple years ago, if you just ask DALL-E to create a picture, and like it would probably default to a kind of like mix of pop art and impressionism, right? That's what it often was, right? Which makes sense because probably in the public consciousness, those are the two most lauded and most recognizable art movements. If that continues long enough, people will just become dissatisfied with it and they'll want the opposite. But getting the opposite of that becomes harder and harder when more and more information just confirms the bias that already exists. And so I wonder if we are moving so quickly, right? We are attuned to move so quickly. And one of the things that humans are really good at that I'm not sure AIs are going to be good at is changing their mind basically on a dime collectively, right? Because of exposure to new information, because of one kind of like traumatic event, not even traumatic in like a physical harming sense, but just like informationally traumatic event. And suddenly you think the opposite of what you did, or suddenly you are dissatisfied with what currently exists. That impetus is going to remain, and it will probably happen much quicker because it's already happening so quickly. People rise into the, we put people on these pedestals. As an example, Timothée Chalamet, American actor. Renee, you know Timothée Chalamet?
Yeah, he played Paul in Dune.
Yeah, he was like one of the most, I think, universally loved actors in the last like calendar year. And then he had this kind of media blitz for this movie, Marty Supreme, that came out in December. And people kind of just like got tired of him. It was like, okay, well, I'm sure that he has many defenders, but like there is now this contingent of people who are just kind of like tired of his shtick. In the Olympics, Ilya Malinin, this prodigious American figure skater, they call him the quad god. He could do all these incredible tricks that nobody else could do. And he was like the most famous of this like new class of American winter sport athletes. And he melted down in his like Olympic gold medal routine. And it was just like, now people are out on him. It's just gone, right? The way that like enthusiasm can spike for something and then disappear for it happens, I think, way quicker than the systems that are around us can interpret, because they are working on, they're just much slower on the uptake. There will always be less information that supports a change in thinking than the glut of information that exists, which confirms the previous thinking. Will we become dissatisfied with systems that can't change as quickly as we do? I suppose is the answer. We see that in crypto art, right? I think many people are tired of the art that has been put on a pedestal as excellent. And that, like, I don't think people were anti-generative art in 2021 and 2022 when art blocks came out. I think my memory, and I don't want it to be this false memory, was like universal enthusiasm for long-form generative art that was so unique and so interesting. People who were on this platform were so
well, it platformed, right? It platformed and created a marketplace for what was very much of the zeitgeist.
But within 3 or 4 years, I think not just people within crypto art, but people outside of this movement look at that same generative art and they're like, nah, okay, well, there's a lot of it. So, the new stuff isn't any better than the early stuff. The early stuff isn't really that impressive in the context of all that came after. Now these skills are in everyone's hands. And I feel like culturally, although not financially, there's a turning away. But the market is also too slow on the uptake to reference that changing cultural attitude. And perhaps that's one of the reasons why this market doesn't seem able to grow, is because the market isn't responding to what people want, because people are moving too quickly. And I think that these systems that are going to start to affect and control and influence more and more of our lives, once these agentic personalities are kind of everywhere, once we are no longer prompting ChatGPT to give us the day's news, but it's just doing it automatically, they're also going to be slower to change, and we're going to be more demanding of change. So I'm not sure that any of these, like an art movement, can exist for so long, because by the time it reaches its peak, people have already been dissatisfied with it. And we are going to be able to move individually and in group chats and in the court of public opinion so much quicker than the much slower, almost like titanically slow platforms and market movements. And
so I can't, I agree with this. I can't see a world in which every modality, every means of operation that we've previously known isn't completely and totally torn asunder.
Yeah, I was about to say, what happens to the platforms that are moving even slower? Who can, how does this tie together? How does it fit together in a world which accelerates even faster?
I mean, what happens when you're no longer reading your group chat? You're just reading the AI summary of your group chat.
Yeah.
There was a tweet that went around this past week. You have people using AI to take tweets and turn them into feature length articles, and then you have readers who are using AI to take those feature length articles and putting them back into tweet size. So nothing's actually happening except for
the very few companies extracting attacks, so to speak, via computation, right? Because it's in and out, and then again it's in and out, and every token that goes through Anthropic's it's called harvesters. It's harvesting US dollars from people who are just modulating content in a way that, I don't know, for a lot of things it just doesn't make sense. It's just people are turning their thoughts into long form AI slop articles, so that others just what you said, summarize it again, and that costs money, that I don't know, waste energy. It's it's so stupid. But maybe at some point the economic incentives are getting clear, so that people stop doing it because it doesn't make sense, because they don't earn money, they just lose money by doing something like this. I don't know.
The systemic motivation exists, right?
Yeah, because right now you are the cool dude on X who's publishing the large posts.
The personal motivation to do that is in opposition to the systemic opposition to doing it. The personal motivation to do that because it improves your brand or makes you be perceived a certain way in your opinion is then opposed by the systemic motivation, which is towards efficiency. And so you have misaligned incentives there, right? To a person at a company, it might be in their best interest to send a very well-written Slack message that's longer and seems more thought out, and it may be in someone else's best interest at that company to then turn it back down to a bubble because they don't have that much time, when the system itself, the company who is paying for the AI, they don't want any of that to happen. They just want to go back to the communication that the way it was before.
Yeah, not for everything, but for certain things where it doesn't make sense. And I think those things are being carved out in a way that people realize it doesn't make sense to do this certain activity AI driven. But another one, like lots of different things, make so much sense.
I mean, what was it? Meta this week patenting the ability for loved ones to live on Facebook and continue to make posts.
Yeah.
It's
So
like
bad.
we're like right there to not even. You could not. 2 months ago, I would have known that this was Renee. I don't know that this is really Renee on this bar. This could totally be, his 4090s emulated voice.
And 6 months from now, the photorealism of video generation will be such that you could be looking at me having this conversation in a facsimile of my actual bedroom, and it probably would be the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Right. You still actually don't know who you're in bed with.
And it's becoming hyper accessible.
What happens if you get a call, right after this from your mother? She's like, Max, I need $500.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, if you're coming to me for money,
like, you're not my mother, AI.
What's the passphrase? What's the passphrase?
Yeah.
You need
Max,
to have
I just need a little more compute.
It's crazy. I happen to be not so much of a doomer about this stuff, and I do think that I think we've reached a point with the addiction economy that is not it is unimprovable. I think the TikTok thing, the short form video content that has now been imitated everywhere, is the best possible form of attention addiction. And I don't think that anything AI does other than that can be more addictive. The reason I bring that up is because I don't think that it's that crazy to think that people will just not use AI in their personal lives, right? That we will no longer trust anything that's not said to us in person or handwritten in a letter, right? That any digital communication that happens anywhere, right? Phone, computer, etc., will just become a second tier communication device. The same way that it will become a new media literacy. Some people will turn away from it altogether, but most people will just look at it with a kind of, they'll just have a distance to it. They will no longer be living one-to-one with their digital world because it actually will be impossible to tell. I think that people will go towards physical newspapers that are printed in actual factories by holding it in their hands. It will be unchangeable in a way that an article, again, you have to think about this. I have to think about this like a year or two out, right? There is going to become a speed of these processes where you will scroll down to the bottom of an article, and by the time you scroll back up, the article itself will have changed agentically to match either new information or a new bias or some new directive that's either internally given or externally given. And so you will literally not be able to trust the ground under your feet if it's digital. I think that everything is going to turn back away from digital. I think that I think that there is a lot of people, there are going to be young people who have never seen anything otherwise, and it will be natural to them. But everybody over the age of 30 has seen something before. And at a certain point, you're already spending your allotted 5 addiction hours on TikTok a day. There's just a lot more time in the day where you are not so addicted to something that you must use it. And okay, I don't know where that was going, but
I mean, the antidote for this is having your own agent as a firewall. and filtering thing to like only let through what should arrive you and like filter out all the scam. And then also for the changing of posts and articles, thankfully, like due to like IPFS and like blockchain technology, we at least are able to have timestamped documents that we know at a certain point have been looking like this, and it's not possible to change that. Like that's another case for NFTs that I see in the future. You know, certification of digital content in a way that it cannot be modified from that point in time where the NFT has been minted. We want to use the ancient vocabulary. And at the same time, I totally think that people are going to, like those who dig through this are going to spend more time in real life with the actual people and their actual friends because of the trust issue towards digital identities and the, I don't know, weirdness of having this agentic layer, your personal assistant between any conversation outside of your own reality.
That is the bull case.
Bull case for what?
That's the bull case for just existence. Is that like everybody is going to get offline and we're going to be in community and, you know, we're going to be with our friends. And
I mean, I actually subscribe to this line of thinking. I do, you know, I've always been a believer as an adult in like there is nothing new under the sun. Every single thing that is happening now in the world, whether you want to talk about political, militaristic, economic, etc., there's just examples of it galore throughout the last, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, right? There is no new thing that people do, right? And it feels like the pendulum is swinging so fast and so towards this one side, and that like it's causing, if we look at AI and the distrust that it's causing as an extension of the distrust caused by social media 10 years ago with the Cambridge Analytica scandal with Facebook, it just seems like we are 2 to 3 years away from the same way that you couldn't trust any of your data being safe online. We're now just at a point where it's like you can't trust anything digitally. All electronic technology is now just untrustable, right? It is the opposite end of the invention of the telephone. That was like a revelation that you could trust a voice that was no longer that was not directly in front of you. And now you are going to be forced in a position where you can only trust things that are directly in front of you. And I don't know how the market responds to that, but certainly in the court of public opinion, it seems like that is this isn't a difficult, I think, point of view to get to or to convince myself to. And you'll have a very segmented life between what you can do online that doesn't require trust in anything and what you do in person. There may no longer be online banking because it may be too hard to trust websites to actually be what they say they are, right? The way that a credit card skimmer can just be thrown into a credit card machine. You may just want to go to a bank teller because you don't want to risk that 2% that you're on the wrong website or that some agentic infrastructure has been applied on top of a website to steal your credit card.
Just use your wallet and Ethereum or stablecoin. At least we have this now. At least that has been built.
That's what I'm saying, like of the rebuilding of every modality. Like every way that you've interacted with anything has to be changed.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, again, back to, I don't know. It goes back to kind of my question from last, like what is valuable and what are people, I am curious, the people that want to continue in this space, what the incentive is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's similar. I think it may be misguided. I mean, that's gently, but like people still think that they can make a consistent and stable living here off of their art. if only the right one thing broke right. I think that is just, it is still, there's a lottery system at play. Even this whole bat soup yum, show me your art and I'll buy it, and it'll get elevated on all these different platforms and so on and so forth. Like, there's still this hope that you are going to break in. You will be the one chosen of the 1,500, and then you will be invited to the museum shows and you'll be exhibited and people will be collecting your work for $200,000. It's no different than buying a meme coin. It's no different than, making a crazy parlay in sports betting. Like, the incentive is like, hey, you never know. And breaking out of the cast that most people are in into that, 30-person tier of artists who can consistently command 5 or 6 figure USD sales, even if that life only lasts for a year, that's all people are looking for. A way out momentarily from the fucking struggle.
Yeah. Wow.
The communal, it's the same thing with, like, the personal motivation doesn't match the systemic motivation. The personal motivation is like, I want success. I want to elevate out of this kind of like morass of artistry, creativity, whatever, into something that is recognized and given financial value. But it kills the space because it ends up with misaligned incentives where you have copycat work and you have fawning personalities and you have a lack of overt criticism and a predisposition towards likability.
That shit is so tired. Maybe that's where we're at. Maybe we're at kind of like the tiredness of all of the takeover of I think I've said this a bunch, but I feel like that woman on the airplane screaming, you people are not real.
Motherfuckers
not real. It's like I'm online looking at the things these people are saying, and I'm sorry, you're not real. You're just not real. You're not honest. You're not being frank, and that's kind of
Frank D. Gods.
I see now as an AI influencer. I actually came upon
one of the biggest experts.
Yeah, big AI expert now. It's incredible. It's incredible to be like a Ronin of X. You just like latch onto whatever trending topic or whatever is hot. I mean, imagine if you have no personality. You do not exist. You are not real. You have not, all you do is just like Claudebot is trending. So now I care about AI. There's a lot of these people. They have no personality of their own. They literally jump from trending thing to trending thing in a hope to build a bigger, more diverse set of people who smash the follow button once.
And it's effective because the incentives are misaligned. The personal incentive on the part of the poster is to amass a following. The incentive on the part of the person who's following is like, this is incredibly low effort. It takes, I don't lose anything by doing this, and it may give me an edge in something. And the system itself is suffering because there are no experts and nobody's learning anything. And it's just this game of follow the leader to nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up with this cesspool of X, right? It's like the system of political communication seeks nuance, it seeks expertise, it seeks understanding. But the personal motivation is to incentivize outrage and to have your outrage affirmed on the part of the creator and the receiver. And so like the system suffers in its perfect form because the incentives of the individuals are not aligned. I'm going to use another example if that's okay. I know I've been talking a lot, but I was just in Japan, and the thing that everyone notices about Japan is how clean it is, right? The sidewalks are spotless, and all the snow is melting in New York, and there is all this dog shit on the road that people, I guess, just didn't decide to clean up, and there's trash and such. And you wonder, how is it possible that you go to this place, this city of 40 million people of Tokyo, and there's no trash around? And it's because the social incentive of I don't litter is so strong that it aligns with the systemic incentive of I'm a place I want to be clean. We want our places to be clean. But in a place like the US where there is no negative social effect of littering, the thing you want is to do less work i.e., not clean up after your dog, or B, not walk around with garbage on you, because it's less comfortable to walk around with garbage on you. And so you throw garbage everywhere. It's completely in your interest to do so. There are no consequences to doing so. And so the system itself suffers in terms of how it looks and how it feels to live there. And the system then degrades, and we're all living in the system. So how do you realign the incentives?
Well, I was workshopping this great SNL skit about this is sidebar about how in Boston Dunkin' Donuts never has to pay for advertising because everybody just throws that shit on the ground. And that's why it's like such an institution, because there's just Dunkin' Donut wrappers everywhere, and and cups. It's kind of the same concept in reverse.
Yeah. And then, of course, opportunistic actors who are going to come in and benefit from the broken system.
Yeah.
Fox News benefits from the broken system. Like, I think Dunkin' Donuts is better than Fox News, but like, there are people who can manipulate and succeed within the broken system. If I don't know, I'm sure that there's a million ways to skin that cat. Not because your cat was just on your shoulder. I say that, but anyways, yeah, I don't know if AI can be used to realign these incentives, but it just seems like incentive structures across the board are broken, because what benefits the individual in most of these circumstances degrades the system. And so then you have no choice but to degrade yourself so as to succeed in a further degrading system and just get by any means above it, as opposed to being dragged down with it. I don't see that changing with the crypto art.
No,
personally. No. I don't think there is a way out of it. I think it just needs to lose so much interest that it just goes away, essentially.
Yeah.
Like there is no redeeming quality of the system that we have now. I mean, it's fine, whatever. There's still good art being made, but that's great for the individual, but the system is boring.
I mean, it is such an interesting point that it just stands in such contrast to crypto art, which was all about like the uplifting of the creative and the collective, in contrast to, especially in the moment, of the valuing of the degradation of the individual. And whether that be, something as like an example is base and understandable as OnlyFans, or even just these people that just kind of trend hop, anything really influencer related, all kind of depends on that.
Yeah. Anything social media related has been figured out, right? Like, the system itself has been hacked, essentially. We know what works, we know what doesn't work. That's why everything's full of rage bait,
right,
full of like engagement porn. That's why every fucking headline of a news article is like ends with a question.
Yeah.
That's why every fucking in every food video I see about some new restaurant in New York ends with like would you eat this? Comment down below. Like, it works.
Yeah.
We know down to a science what works for engagement, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
It's just like we're addicted to the system. We can't get out of it.
Here's what 10 celebrities look like now. Number 4 will shock you.
Yeah, exactly. What's the one that you did? We put spaghetti with meatballs. You won't believe it.
Oh yeah. That one was pretty funny.
Yeah, like we're too good at it, right? And we know that if you don't play the game, you won't succeed, right? There is no room for a morality play within social media. The game's gone. It's like fucking Jimmy Carter, right? He wanted to be the human rights president, and it's like it just world leaders in the late 1970s, like that wasn't going to play. Like that's not what worked. That's not. I don't know as much about Jimmy Carter to make that. Don't ask me any follow-up questions. I don't know anything about Jimmy. But it's the same thing with crypto art. And it always comes back to it. Like, it's just an extension of social media. We know what works here. And You can try and do it by you can try and achieve a following, you can try and achieve financial success by some other means, right? You can try and, create the best art, right? You can try and foment, real organic engagement, but that's not how this works. It's not what's best. Like within the system that it exists in, whether that system is on Blue Sky or Farcaster or Twitter, the system has a bias towards certain kinds of activity, certain kinds of art, certain kinds of actors, and that's just the reality.
Yeah, I mean, here's another thing that I've been toying with too, because they say, that the shadow market is at least 2 times larger than kind of what is recorded economy. So it's also entirely possible that just like everything is money laundering. That money laundering is attracted to places like this, but just absolutely destroy it open. And it could just be as simple and base as that.
Listen, dude, apparently the whole world is run by a pedophile cabal. All the QAnon shit from 10 years ago was not barking up the complete wrong tree. So at this point,
it's very likely that there are just separate systems, right?
Yeah.
And this box of wanting to like care for artists is just so overrun by all of these other things at play, and they're all intermixed. And I mean, it certainly seems like there is no incentive to be other than like a personal moral decision to just be a good person.
Which saves yourself, but it ruins your place in the system, essentially.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people here have never, ever felt a place in the system because deep down they know, or at least energetically have some sort of sense that there isn't a reality that they're not seeing.
Like, I think that we at the museum have tried really hard, maybe as our primary directive over the last 5 years, to create a place for people who don't feel seen to at least feel like they could be appreciated within. And it has not grown our brand, and it has not been financially lucrative, and we get a lot of shit from that, for as everyone gets shit, but like that is like with conviction and intent doing things the wrong way, right? If we fucking played this game, when I came into the museum, I think we had like 70,000 followers on Twitter, right? If we just played the fucking engagement game, we would be fucking massively important, right? Massively important, right? We would have 6 times that amount of followers. We would be fucking sponsoring all it would have taken was the right alignments and the right kind of like relationships and putting money in the right places. I'm sure we could have identified that, but we decided not to do that because it was laying fucking
well, I will say, and having been so involved in growing the account from the beginning, before there was money in it, it actually really grew. I think that like the Silicon Valley VCs are so deeply tied into the engagement algorithms, and people that had massive bot armies began to direct and deflect attention engagement away from places like us to further their own profit motives.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like not even a conspiracy. That was just like so obviously what happened. And you can be like a well-intentioned influencer in a space that has no economic incentive, but once it actually turns into something economic, you are definitely getting subverted.
A couple years ago, Una offered to get me like 40,000 followers for my birthday. Like, I don't know why we were hanging out or what we were talking about, but I was like, please definitely don't do that. But sometimes I think about like, what if I had 41,000 followers right now? Like, would I have a place in this hierarchy for my name and be asked to be on panels and be asked to curate things and be asked to write in these, for these, I don't know, I guess more influential, more well-connected places? Not a thing I want, not a thing I would have ever wanted, but like it might have just been that easy, right? Like throw $1,500 at the wall for a bunch of fake engagement, and all of a sudden, like that's all you needed to do. It's, again, we know how it's done. Every 6 months, there's some expose about, oh, the influencers in crypto art, they're actually botting their engagement, and that the things might not be as so copacetic as you would think. And
I mean, I had a great running screenshot series of people tweeting GM, and it was the exact same number of comments as retweets.
Pretty good. What are the chances?
Unusual.
That's what you should start posting on 01.
It doesn't. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even matter. It's just sad, you know. It's just kind of sad that it unfortunately devolves to nihilism, right? It devolves to nihilism because if you play fair and are well intentioned, you will always be subverted. Oh, I gotta go.
You just bounced. He's still here, but
I don't know what's going on. But I gotta go to karate. I gotta get out of here.
All right, Cobur's got to go to karate. This is
yeah. That was a good out. Whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't be nihilistic. Care about something, but also
care about your art. Just don't expect to make any money or success.
Yeah,
it's about feeding this. It's not about feeding.
Whatever. The world's gonna change.
Thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you, Emotional, for being in the chat. Thank you, Natalie Crew, for recognizing Colborn's cat. We'll be back next week, we hope, and we hope that we will see you there too. Colborn, enjoy karate.
Thanks, y'all.
Renee, enjoy nighttime in Europe.